This is a 1968 Plymouth Sport Fury 2-door. And this is a really cool, I'm privileged to have this car. It's actually the first Mopar I've ever picked up. And I got it because it's got really truly got 89,000 original miles, and it's basically an unmolested car. A couple of the things, gauges don't work on the dash, like the speedometer. The temp gauge does work. I think the fuel gauge maybe not. It's got a Commando 383. Transmission shifts perfect. The car steers perfect. I mean, this is a great kind of the old boat, you know, like kind of the old boat slash muscle car, you know, like tons of power. It's got dual quad intake. Everything's been dialed in well. Power brakes, power steering. I mean, the car drives with one finger. I mean, it just, watch, I literally can, I'm holding the camera one hand, I can literally bring this into the cul-de-sac with one finger. But she's still a little bit cold. Zero smoke. Really, really nice sounding, this classic style exhaust. Looks like, it sounds like it might have a minor exhaust leak. Engine runs like a top. Got good throttle response. Oh man, this is a really cool car. If you're a Mopar guy, this is a great way to get into a Mopar without spending a bunch of money. I mean, without spending the money on a Charger or something like that. What a cool car. Beautiful engine detail. Done in Hemi orange. Brand new Edelbrock valve covers. Dual carb air cleaner. Dual Edelbrocks. Brass original radiator. It does have a fuel PSI regulator on it. This has got one repaint. The we got this truck, this car, I'm sorry, I keep saying truck. I've been driving trucks all morning. So we got this car from an old gentleman who always kept the garage kept. He's owned it for a really long time. And the repaint that was done on it was done a while back. Maybe it's probably 20 years old. So it's got a real original look to it. And other than having a repaint, the car is all original. Now he said that the engine and transmission were pulled and rebuilt years ago. When they did the paint job, they also redid the engine and trans just to, have a good running car. The shame on this car is I put a brand new headliner in it because it was falling out. Everything else is original. And somebody at the upholstery shop backed into this car about a week ago. And so thankfully the damage is minimal. It's got a touch of a dent there, a couple of pieces of trim, broken light bezel. So it's going to need some minor repair in the back on the deck lid. And I thought about just taking it to the shop and doing it and all that stuff, but I think what I'm going to do is we'll take a settlement from the guy who did that, and I'm going to let this car go on to the next guy who may want to just paint the whole thing or whatever. What I didn't want to do was I didn't want to fix it and only paint the back, because I thought, what if somebody wants to just use that as an excuse to just go ahead and paint the whole car? It doesn't need a paint job. I'm not saying that it does. It's just that some guys are like that. If you're watching this video, maybe you're that guy. Or maybe you're the guy that can fix that by yourself in the garage, get those parts and pound that dent out and touch it up in the back and have a couple bucks in it. Because other than that, it's all it really needs. It's got the original interior. It's never been reupholstered. I had one little place here where I had them stitch it because it was coming apart. It's not the best. It looks like Frankenstein, but it's still the original interior, and I just didn't want to go. I didn't want to molest this car. I was heartbroken to find out that somebody backed into it, because if that hadn't happened, I could say this car is basically unmolested aside from a paint job, an engine and trans rebuild. I mean, it's got all the original dash. Nobody's done any mods to it. It's unmolested. It's still got the old solid state by Plymouth radio in it. Blower works good. All the lights work. Emergency brake works. Back seat and front seats are in great shape. Aside from that one spot that I told you about having a redo right there, the seats are in great shape. The carpet looks good. The door panels look good. I'm not saying perfect. I'm saying for 89,000 original miles, it's an unmolested car. That's what I'm saying. No rust on the car. One spot of rust I'm going to show you in a minute. One spot of rust I've seen on the entire car, and it's in a normal, typical spot. Show you the one spot on the subframe right here. Oh, we got a little pine straw, Georgia pine straw. One spot right here. Let me get the camera adjusted so I can point out. There's one spot. Oh, here we go at the back of the frame, subframe right there. You've got that. You do have that. So I did want to show that. Floor pans look good, and everywhere else on the car. To be honest with you, I didn't even see that. I'm so impressed with the rest of the car and the shape of the car when we bought this, when we picked it up, that I didn't even notice that. And we must have looked underneath this car 3 or 4 times until I got it up on the lift and I realized, oh wow, that's underneath there. I had no idea, and it seemed uncharacteristic compared to the rest of the car. I mean, there's... I think there was maybe one other spot back here. Let's see. No? Oh yeah, old rust on the inner fender right here. There was one old rust spot right there on the inner fender right there. There you can see that. A little bit of surface rust also just on the back. Actually, when we picked this up, I had not planned on buying this car. I bought an old Galaxy from the guy that I bought this car from. And I saw this car and I said, man, that thing is clean, it's sharp. I think the price is right on it. It looks super nice. And we actually drove it home from North Carolina. Super mechanically reliable. So, that was really what sold me on it. We took it for a drive and the guy said, man, we're driving it back and forth to Pigeon Forge and Tennessee and just enjoying this car, and I think I'm ready to find it a new home. And the guy who owned this car actually owns about 20 cars. He had a couple of Corvettes, just had some nice other collector stuff, a couple of other Mopars, a couple of Fords. I bought it, like I said, I bought a Galaxy convertible from him that I bought for us to keep for my wife. And then he had the Sport Fury, and I just said, man, this thing's awesome. I was looking through his whole collection. I said, I've never had a Mopar before. If this one runs awesome, I want it. So I'm here passing it on to the next guy. It could use a few things. Like I said, it's basically an unmolested, unrestored car. No visible pops or body pops or rust on the body, on the exterior. Those couple of spots that I showed you. That one small dent on the back deck lid and the trim that needs to be fixed there from being backed into. Breaks my heart, man. If I was doing this video 2 weeks ago, I would have never had to point that out, because it didn't happen 2 weeks ago. Excellent tread on the tires. I drove it back from North Carolina 3 hours, never overheated, never skipped, never did anything wrong. Just ran great. And then we got it up in the shop and Jason tuned it in just right, and everything looks really good. I threw the valve covers and air cleaner on it just to make it look sharp. Engine detail looks good. This is a great car. I think it's a great price. I'm ready to kind of find it a new home. We've enjoyed driving it for the past month or so. Jason's taken it home a few times, my mechanic, and just enjoyed it with his family. It's big, it's got seat belts and everything, so I think somebody's gonna have a blast with this thing, and I think it's ready to drive on a daily basis and enjoy and tinker with.